Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Karma, You Can Change Your Fate. Tsem Rinpoche. Anyways, I'm curious as to, I guess his particular version of karma. I'm not sure if it's the same, if it's different. Don't quote me on this, but I believe he's a Tibetan Buddhist, I believe. But anyways, let's go and give this video a shot.
When we do Buddhistic teachings and Buddhistic practices, it is not to make us Buddhists. It is to make us a wonderful, beautiful human being, the best we can become, with knowledge and wisdom to push ourselves in that direction. And if we happen in the end to turn out to be a Buddhist, wonderful. Christian, wonderful. Muslim, wonderful. Hindu, wonderful. Atheist, wonderful. A Malaysian, wonderful. It doesn't really matter what label we label ourselves, because you know why? In the end, when we die, karma, cause and effect, completely take over. So whatever labels you put on yourself, whatever you called yourself, Buddhist or not, it doesn't matter in the end. Karma takes over. Karma doesn't affect Buddhists. Karma affects every sentient being in the universe. It is an all-pervasive law of existence that pervades. You see, people sometimes think, oh, you know, Buddha talks about karma because the pervasive thought of that time was karma, because he was born into a Shastriya. Shastriya, which is the next step down from Brahmin. Brahmin, Shastriya. Caste. Out of the four castes, Shastriya was the next highest. It's a warrior class. The one above that is the Brahmin class, the highest, the priestly class, who doesn't do anything that is uncouth and unclean. So you may think that because the time of the people of that time, the Jains, the Hindus, all had a belief, and even the Catholics of the 16th and 15th century Europe believed in reincarnation. Of course, those scriptures were burned in England, in France, because they were incompatible with the people at that time. But the reincarnation scriptures were definitely there. Definitely there. So what happens is, reincarnation and karma is not something indigenous of Buddhism. And it's not something that was in the Hindu thought, that because Buddha was born into that society and therefore he adopted that thought because it was just a trend. Because if you're going to say that about Buddha, why is it everything else he says contrasts the thought of his day? Example, women's issues. That women should not, jump into the fire if their husband dies. That women should not be subservient to husbands. And that women are equal and women have the same opportunities to become Buddha as anyone else. And therefore, he had a lot of female disciples who reached very high levels of meditation. So he had a lot of thoughts in his time that contrad Brahmin or Hindu or Jain thought at that time. So karma is not something that Buddha talked about because it was in vogue. It was something Buddha perceived in the first, the second, and the third watch of the night of his enlightenment. At the eve of his enlightenment and total understanding at the dawn of his enlightenment. So karma just happens to fit into one of the great Hindu saints, because the Hindu saints are saints. They can see. They can perceive something higher. Anybody who has any understanding can perceive karma. Why? The disparity of the world, the disparity between people, the disparity within society, even the disparity within one family between siblings who have the same equal start in life, yet they end up different. So if you say, well, their mind came from the parents, if you say their mind came from the parents, then every single child has to have the exact same brain power or no brain power as the parents. One child cannot be smarter. So obviously, the physical form that supports the life form, the mind, comes from the parents, but not the mind. And therefore, each child, even if there's 5 kids, 10 kids in the family, they'll be very different, and their success and what they can achieve in their family will be very different. Although they brought up on the same values, same background, and even their flesh comes from the exact same people. Even the disparity within the family can be explained by karma. So they can be explained within a community, within a neighborhood, within a community. The disparity, the differences, good and bad, can be explained within a community, within a village, within a city, within a country, within the country's interdependence with each other. And some countries' disparity are very poor, and some countries very wealthy. And also between universes and dimensions. Karma explains it all perfectly, clearly, and precisely. And also it gives you a sense of fairness and makes you take responsibility. People who take karma as the life force of their life, they take responsibility for their life. People who leave it to an outer force that they have no control. You see, if they have no control, go all the way with it. If you have no control, then you have no control. Then the outer force, the higher creative force must provide everything for you. Why do you even need to do anything? Why? It doesn't make sense also. So if a higher force creates and provides and gives you everything, why is it if you don't make effort, it's not provided? When you make an effort, it is provided. Why? And at the same time, if this higher outer creative force created you to have a free mind, if you were given a free mind, it also doesn't make sense, because if you choose the wrong path, why should you suffer for being given the free mind and not enough information to digest what should be picked, good or bad? As an example I gave last week, if you're born in some remote, distant jungle and you've never heard of anything except cutting people's head off and shrinking it and, running around a fire and, and running around naked, and that's all you've known for the last 2,000 years, if you're not giving the information to pick the right path so that you do not descend into hell or permanent purgatory, doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't explain anything. So we cannot choose a faith or a religious practice that is for privileged people, only for a few people who have the economic ability and the sociological background and the complacency to be so privileged to say, well, I choose this, I choose that, and this is the way destiny is given me. Well, what about the other people in the world? So when we choose a type of thought that only fits a few privileged few, it doesn't help. Why? There's only a few of us who can think, well, I choose this and choose that, because not everybody is at that level. So, and even that ability to choose is a disparity in itself. Is a disparity in itself. So all that, to me, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make me feel good at all. We can have computers here, we can have cars here, we have great light, we have great water. Like I say, Malaysia is fabulous. It is such a fabulous country. We have everything here. But what about countries that don't have anything? Don't tell me that why aren't you spiritual? And that, why were a creative force put you there to suffer and never hear anything and never have an opportunity toward life at all? I've seen it. And you just suffer, but and afterwards you go to hell or heaven, and that's your thing. But me, I go to hell or heaven too, because I've done good things. What happens if they didn't even have an opportunity to do good things or to hear about the difference between good and bad? So if you're talking about a wild person in some remote jungle somewhere, which exists today, and all they do is kill and kill and kill each other, and they've been taught that's good for the last 1,000 years because you eat the enemy's heart, you get their power, you protect your family, you're protected from magic. That's what they believe. Borneo example. Then they believe it's good. That's their belief system. And so actually, that belief is wrong because any harm brings unhappiness. So for them not to hear that message, if I'm a Buddhist and I say, well, you had a choice and Buddha created me and put me here and he put you there, and so I learned my lesson. What about that person? Doesn't apply. So we can't have a religion for a privileged few. We have to have a religion that encompasses every sentient being, including the animals and insects and other dimensions of formless forms that only mind exists. So Buddhism encompasses all sentient beings, human and non-human, all disparities, all backgrounds, all races, all people, and it explains every single person and being in this planet and beyond. For me, that helps because this type of philosophy, as Buddha has turned the wheel of Dharma, applies to the persons in a jungle who doesn't know anything. It applies to the animals in the forest and why they're there. Applies to the crippled and the blind who are born in that way. It applies to the very wealthy who manipulate power. It applies to the leaders. It applies to the kings and queens. It applies to the normal citizens. It applies to the nobodies in the world like me. It applies to people who are successful. It applies to people who are not successful. It applies to black people and white people and yellow people and brown people and red people. It applies to women, it applies to men. It applies to sick people and healthy people. It applies to short and tall people. It applies to happy and unhappy people. It applies to people who want to commit suicide and people who live in happiness and go to parties. It applies to very successful businessmen and businessmen who are trying. This philosophy of karma and reincarnation and responsibility applies to everyone, even an insect. And that is the vastness of Buddha's philosophy. No one is left out. Everybody is covered. And it's a gentle philosophy of truth. And it's a philosophy that explains and takes away emptiness in your heart, takes away hopelessness, takes away the thought of helplessness. Why? Although karma is there and you are the creator, you are the author of your karma, you are the inheritor of your karma, it is not fatalistic. Your karma is not fated and it has to remain. If you do nothing about it and you let your karma just flow, then yes, it is fatalistic because you chose it to be. If you are doing something about your karma, then it is not fatalistic. In fact, it is optimistic. Because you know that 5 years later, you're going to have an accident. 6 years later, you're going to die and be born as an animal. 3 years later, you're going to be separated from your wife. 2 years later, you're going to lose your job. 1 year later, whatever business you try to do cannot grow. If you know that, or you've been kindly told that, or you've been warned, or somehow whatever, and you do that information instead of scaring you, should bring extreme optimism to you. Why? I'll do something about it. Then the next question is, what will I do about it? Then you engage in the cause of how that happened, to understand how to avert, and how to understand how to stop, and how to understand how to prevent. So actually people think that karma is fatalistic. It is not. Fatalistic means it's fatal, it's fated, you can't do anything about it. No. You see, let me give you logic. If karma is fatalistic, why meditate and practice and become a Buddha? It's contradictory. Then how can you become a Buddha? Never mind become a Buddha, an all-omniscient being who can perceive all reality and phenomenon simultaneously, past, present, and future. Never mind the reality of perceiving all phenomenon. You can't even get a job. You can't even make $1 million that you want to make. You can't even do that. You know, being a Buddha is much more than that. Much more. So if you cannot be a Buddha, all right, then you can be fatalistic. But why is it that you can't lose weight? Why is it you can't get a better job? Why is it you can't change your old habits? Why is it you can't transform your mind? Why is it you cannot improve yourself? Why is it you can't get along with people? Why is it you cannot get rid of anger? Why is it you cannot become more patient and accepting of people around you? Why is it you can't forgive easier? Why is it you cannot let go of things, but you can still be a Buddha? And yet, after prayers, dedications, we pray, may we become a Buddha. So why is it you dedicated for something so far and high and distant, and yet something within your grasp and reach of changing your habit, lessening one's anger, you can't do, but you can be a Buddha. So people who engage in Buddhistic practices, meditations and teachings, and they engage in pujas and dharma work, and they complain they can't change themselves, or they say they need more time, or they buy more time. It is not they can't, it's that they're not willing to. Because they're comfortable making themselves and people around them suffer. Because why? The selfish mind is very strong. So if you make one offering to the Buddha, if you work for a dharma, what's the purpose? The purpose is to become a Buddha. So if your purpose is to become a Buddha, that is really, really 3 countless aeons of work. How come you can dedicate and motivate and think about becoming a Buddha, but you can't get rid of your anger? You can't stop yourself from controlling yourself when you're annoyed with people. Or when people say something to you, you can't control yourself. And you don't want to control, because it's not you can't, you don't want to. Why? You're happy. You're used to being selfish, and you think you get your way by being selfish, self-centered. Why is it when you have bad habits of laziness, exercise, hygiene, work, consistency, and moods, why is it that you can't control your own moods, yet you want to be a Buddha? So within Buddhists, there's a lot of hypocrisy. Many people are hypocritical. Why? They have altars, they make offerings, they recite mantras, they serve their gurus, yet they don't change their own mood and their own pattern and their own laziness. Very hypocritical.
Okay. Interesting. You went into a lot of things. I guess to kind of sum it up, it's kind of similar to what Swami Taramadanda has said in terms of karma, which I do like. It's the sheer fact that okay, let's see. So if you believe in reincarnation, you have built up karma, good and bad. You can't control what comes to you, but you can control what you do when it comes to you. So that's like to say that if bad karma comes up to you, like for example, if you're trying to get a high level position, but you've hit bad karma where you're not making your how do I say, making your strides. Things you need to get that position, you're just failing at those things. There's a couple things you can do. You can just back out of that for now, work on yourself to better yourself for the next time the promotion comes. 2, look for a different job. 2 things that could maybe pay more or whatever, the other job. Like there's many ways you can handle your karma. Your control of your life. So if you let karma do things to you without you answering back, then yeah, you're going to be, like he's saying, fatalistic in terms of the fact that you're not controlling your life, you're letting karma control your life. And obviously, I do like the fact that it says take responsibility, which is again very much what I've heard about karma, is the fact that obviously you have to take responsibility for your actions because they're going to generate karma for you, whether they be good or bad. And take responsibility for the bad or good karma. Well, I don't know about good karma, but I know they say bad karma, you want to take responsibility for that. So I like the idea that so far, in terms of at least his teachings in Advaita Vedanta with Swami Taramadanda, that karma is something that you have, well, some control over. You can't control what's given to you, but you can control how you handle the karma that you get, which I like very much. Take responsibility. Obviously, you can only control your body, your mind, and generally things around you to some degree. Obviously, you can put something here and boom, it's there. It's your control. You wanted it there, it's there. Unless someone grabs it and moves it over a little bit, then you can move it back. But you get what I'm saying. That you do have some control over the things that you own in your house. If you share that house, obviously you're going to have to share control. But in terms of your body, what you do, how you act, your emotions and all that, that's all on you. How you take things as well. And don't lose control over that. Don't let anyone else control you. This is something that Sadhguru talks about a lot, about reading the manual. Everyone read the manual for this body, right? And you know which buttons that are being pushed on you, so you know not to let anyone push those buttons. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. Anyways, that's my reaction to karma. What can you change? You can change your fate. What can you change? You can change your fate. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down, and down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next vid.